Hello, everyone. I'm Jose Hernandez. This is my partner.
I'm Aiden Bao.
Yeah, and today we're gonna talk about a really interesting question from Thomas Aquinas, Saint Thomas Aquinas. Is the intellect a passive capacity? And basically, Aquinas is asking, how does our mind actually work, right? And when we learn something, like, is our mind just sitting there, like, soaking in information like a sponge, or is it actually doing something active, like thinking, interpreting, or understanding? This is a big question because it deals with how humans come to know things, right? How we gain knowledge, and whether our mind is just a receiver of knowledge or an active part of the process. Aquinas is also trying to like make sense of what it means to know something, and this is all connects to Aristotle, Aristotle's idea uh, that the mind starts are kind of like a a blank slate, yeah, and gains knowledge like over time, uh, in the process of like experiencing things, right? So today we'll break it down in a few parts. First is the objection, and then Aquinas' answer, right? How he responds to the objection, and finally our take on it.
So the first objection, the argument basically says that the intellect or the mind can't be passive. So this is how Aquinas puts it in his formal terms. Everything that is acted on acts according to its matter and form, but the intellect comes from the soul, which is immaterial. It's not made of physical stuff. Therefore, the intellect can't be passive. So, in simple terms, if being acted upon means something physical has to change, like metal melting or clay being molded, then the intellect can't be passive because it doesn't have matter. It's part of the soul, not the body. It's kind of logical argument. It's used definitions like matter, form, action to reach a conclusion. It's saying, look, the mind doesn't have matter, so it can't be acted on. The reason this objection matters is because it's trying to protect the soul's spiritual nature. If the intellect were passive, like a physical thing, that would make it seem material, and that goes against the idea that the soul is immaterial. But we'll see Aquinas doesn't totally disagree. He just says the word passive can mean more than one thing.
Yeah, and like Aquinas answers this by like arguing, okay, like there's more than one way to talk about being acted upon, right? He breaks it down into three levels of meanings, uh, like of passive, of what passive means, right? The strictest one, the strictest sense, this is when something physically changes, right? And like when metal gets too hot or the wood burns, right? The intellect isn't passive like that because it's not material, right? Our mind doesn't physically melt or change when we think, right? Uh, yeah, that would be the first one. The second one would be a less strict sense, right? This is when like something changes emotionally or in quality, right? Like when someone becomes like happy, sad, or like emotions, right? And also we have the third one, the broadest sense. This is when something goes from potential to actual, uh, like transform or gains form, right? Uh, so like in other words, the intellect has potential to know everything, but it doesn't actually know everything until like we will never know everything, but won't like once it learns, so it gains actuality. Uh, yeah. So like in this third one, the intellect is passive because it's open to receiving knowledge. Our mind starts out like as able to know, but when we actually understand, then it becomes real, right? Like an actuality. For example, like when you study for an exam, you have the capacity, the potentiality to like know every question or every answer to the questions. But until you actually learn the answers, or until you actually uh, like develop the answers, you won't actually know the answers, right? So yeah, that this is Aquinas' view, right, on the intellect being passive. Yeah.
So, how he responds to the objection. Aquinas goes back to the objection and clears things up. He says that the intellect isn't passive in a material way. It doesn't change the way a physical object does, but it is passive in an intellectual way. But it's received ideas, or what he calls intellectual forms. He uses the famous blank tablet comparison from Aristotle. He says the mind is like a blank tablet. There's nothing written on it at first. When we learn something, our intellect is written on by the thing we know, but it's not like words on a paper. It's not a physical writing. It's a form or idea of the thing being received by the mind. For example, if you look at a tree, your mind doesn't take in the actual tree. You're not editing bark, leaves. What your intellect receives is a form of treeness, the idea of or essence or of what makes a tree. So when you know something, your intellect is acted upon, but only in your spiritual sense is received in meaning, not material. Aquinas also points out that his doesn't make sense, make an intellectual weak or passive like a rock being hit by a hammer. It's actually the opposite. It shows how powerful and open the intellect is, but because it's not tied up to the matter, it can potentially know anything that what makes human understanding unique. So Aquinas agrees that with the objection that the intellect isn't passive in the physical sense, but he adds that it is passive in a higher intellectual way.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Aquinas is right here, and like he's smart to look at both ways, right? He doesn't just like pick a side and like just completely blocks out the other one. He kind of finds like a middle ground, right? Like he says, intellect isn't passive, like something material, right? But it's not 100% active either. He says it's kind of receptive, like it's open to find knowledge, to find truth, to gain value and virtue, and that's how we actually grow and learn, right? If our mind was totally active, then we already knew it, like we would already know everything, right? or or didn't have the need to seek new things or new knowledge, or like maybe question things. We would just like know everything. And like a simple way to look at it, like an example, it's maybe like a light in a window. The window doesn't make the light, but it lets it in, right? So we don't make knowledge, like our mind doesn't make knowledge, but it finds it. Like it lets it in to for us to like use it and apply it, right? So that would be our take in it.
To wrap up, I think Aquinas' answer makes a lot of sense. He manages to respect both sides, the spiritual nature of the soul and the real process of learning. He shows that the intellect is not just a passive receiver like a sponge, but it's not all active either. It's this unique mix of potential and openness. If you think about it, this connects to even to modern debates. Like today, people argue about whether thoughts are just brain activity or something deeper, something that goes beyond biology. Aquinas would definitely say that there's something more, that our intellect has this special immaterial power that can grasp truth itself. So at the end, Aquinas' answer is basically yes, the intellect is passive, but in a good way. It's passive in the sense that it's open to truth and becomes complete when it understands.
So that'll be it. Thank you so much for listening to us. Have a good one.